And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider, Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb and Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side, and the crew. The MGoBlog Roundtable crew is with us, as they are every Thursday around this time. Starting off with the man that started it all at MGoBlog is Brian Cook. Brian, good morning. How are you?
I'm well. You
are well. Craig Ross with the Hassan Haskins jersey hanging proudly in the back. How are you?
Yeah, I also got, that's Larry in the background, if you can see him, from the Stooges, who I consider the superior Stooge because he always had the good ideas.
So is that new? I guess I can't say. Is that Pee Wee Herman up there too?
Yeah, that's Pee Wee up there. He's sort of, he's on the social outs, but I did have, my brother gave me a Pee Wee Herman, and he's whispering into Larry's ear, giving him better ideas.
Yeah, good idea. So who had the Haskins jersey first? Seth, you or Craig?
I think Seth.
It's me it's got to be me by far. That was when we were doing Hail of the Victors last year, and I was like going back and UFRing the Michigan State game from 2020 in like the spring because I'm insane, and I was trying to look for ways to get excited for that 2021 season after 2-4. And Haskins was like jumping over people, running through people, and I was like, okay, this guy's got me excited. So
I gotcha. All right, so fellas, let's dive in, to steal the phrase from one of my son's favorite Paw Patrol characters. Let's dive into this this sort of Big Ten news that sounds like it's on the horizon. We saw the Pac-12 do away with divisions last week, and then this week you hear I think it was, what's the Michigan, Alan Haller is his name. He said, hey, something's coming, but I can't say what. Like, he's like, dude, just don't say anything if you can't, if that's what you're going to give us. Come to find out, through some sleuthing, fans, they went to fbschedules.com. All the Big Ten schedules were wiped. Future schedules were wiped. Went to MGO Blue. Michigan's future schedule, Big Ten schedules were wiped. Really seems like something's afoot when it comes to Big Ten scheduling. Is it, you think, doing away with divisions? What do you think is in the offing here, Brian?
Well, that's the thing that makes sense. That's the one rule change that has happened recently that would cause that sort of change. I think we talked about this last week, where I'm not in favor of it because of Michigan, Ohio State being essentially a conference championship game most years. And then to play that again is...
I guess, are you surprised that it's like now? Like, they're talking about, I guess I thought it would be a little farther off for them. But it sounds like this is right around the corner.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. I mean, I guess from a television perspective, Michigan, Iowa was not compelling. And most Ohio State championship games are not compelling either. So you get the odd year where it's like Iowa versus Michigan State, and that's actually a good game. But most of the time you get into these and it's like 42-3 or 56-0 or whatever. So the Big Ten championship game is really a dud most years. And I can understand why they would think that maybe Michigan, Ohio State Part 2 would make more money. And that's the thing that they really care about, right?
Right. That's what they really care about.
Well, what do you think about that? I mean, are you okay with a doubleheader in Michigan, Ohio State?
Absolutely not.
No,
absolutely not.
Absolutely gross to have like the Michigan, Ohio State game be the last game of the season. And then it's like, oh, guess what? Michigan, Ohio State 2 the next week. It just feels like absurd. It's a little absurd that, the SEC championship game was Alabama versus Georgia, and the national championship game was Alabama versus Georgia. But at least they had to get through playoff games to get there. It's not the next week.
Yeah, I'm feeling not quite so negative on that, just because for the reasons you just said. I don't think anyone got worked up about the doubleheader. And
so what about this? What about
Alabama,
this as an alternative? And it's been brought up before. We mentioned it yesterday, and as a matter of fact, I think it was mentioned on the show. Didn't Dave Brandon come on this show and kind of float that, Ira, or did he float it elsewhere too? Moving Michigan, Ohio State to earlier in the season.
I think the trial balloon was just here.
Yeah, so he came on this obviously years ago now and talked about moving that game up.
Yeah.
If they do away with divisions and the
Hi, I'm Dave Brandon.
and the
No.
That was the first moment, because remember Dave Brandon. The history of Dave Brandon with us is like there was that silly investigation into Practice Gate, and he handled that how you would want him to handle that. And then, like, the first inkling we had that Dave Brandon was really Dave Brandon was that. Where he's just like, why don't we move Ohio State up earlier in the season so that they're not played back-to-back weeks? And we were like, oh no, this guy's in charge.
If they do away with divisions, is that a a plan that you would be more amenable to at this point?
I don't think so, because we already know what time the Ohio State game is. We know what network it's on. It's at noon. It's on Fox. They announced that 7 months before the game. It's the last week of the season. It's at noon. Toe meets leather at noon under a steel gray sky.
Brian, you should be doing that game, not the guys that got doing it.
And so it feels like there's
Brian would be better.
Is nothing sacred anymore? I mean, so many things have changed with college football, and I think some of these changes are good, but also, like, what are we doing here? Like, this is a sport where tradition is something that's supposed to matter, and if we do away with divisions and it's like, well, Michigan, Ohio State, we have this choice, then I mean, I just don't feel like that's the way to go. I mean,
So
I feel like the way to go
back-to-back weeks would be the lesser of two evils to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way to go is to throw like Penn State and Michigan State in the other division and just like whatever. Geography does not matter. Just have or just do some pods and switch some things up, but consistently have the teams who are performing the best in the division who aren't Michigan, Ohio State in the other division.
I like this idea. I like the idea of, and it wouldn't have to be fixed necessarily. I like the idea of realigning the divisions maybe every couple of years, so that there's balance of strength within the divisions. And so right now it would look like, okay, what if you left Michigan and Ohio State in the East, so-called East, but you pushed Penn State, maybe Michigan State over to the West. And so now your conference championship game is much more likely to be a game that will be interesting and be have some national eyes on the screen. So I mean that seems like a better idea to me. Now Seth's idea Seth wrote why don't you explain what you did, Seth? Because I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I talked about it last week and then I wrote it up. It's the showcase plan. And I went through all these old seasons in the Big Ten when they had divisions. First of all, I'm a little nervous that one of the reasons that they are pushing for the Big Ten wants to do this right away is that Wisconsin, Ohio State is about to get locked in. Michigan was locked in with Wisconsin for a while. Nebraska was locked in with Nebraska. Ohio State is about to have the hardest schedule in the Big Ten, other than some teams like Indiana, who always ends up locked in with Michigan, Ohio State. But Ohio State's about to have a tougher schedule, and they're upset about that. They think it's unfair that it's not unfair anymore. I'm a little nervous because the Big Ten, if you could track the changes they've made over time, a lot of times it's just reactive to whatever Ohio State needs right now. That thrown out of the way. The showcase plan, I went through all these back seasons, and even with the divisions, when the divisions mess you up, having divisions actually creates a worse schedule and a worse Big Ten champion. But even with divisions, the showcase plan made sure we had a great game at the end of every single season. Most of the time, it was the same championship game. That Michigan State Iowa game that was a really good game and everyone was interested in. They played that, right? You just don't have. I hate seeing the same team again. I think that should be illegal. I think that if across college football, like if you
right to jail.
No, if you played a team already, then and they're in the playoffs, you don't get to be in the playoffs. Like, I think that there should never, that's it. You play a team, that's the only time you can play that team all year. And, I don't want to see Georgia, Alabama again. If you lose the SEC championship, you're out. That should be it.
Interesting. What do you think about that one? I don't know what I think.
I think you can make an argument for it. Like, I think no rematches is pretty compelling. Like, it would have kicked the clearly best team in college football out of the playoff last year, but sometimes them's the breaks. So, I mean, is it fair? No. But is the rest of college football fair? No. So why are we so concerned about whether something is fair to Georgia?
Right.
Just no rematches. No, that's a good
I
one.
hear that. All right. So another news item, Michigan, trying to make another move in the NIL space, making cutting a deal that will allow student athletes to benefit from the licensing with and trademark of the Block M. And I'm curious what you guys think about that.
I just want to see a Block M on the Big Dickinson Energy shirt. Let's officially license that one.
I kind of think as funny as I'm kind of not expecting to see that one.
Okay,
I'm expecting to see that one.
I just no, I mean it's good. It's good that it's publicly out there. I mean, I think getting called out by pretty much the big man on campus right now, both in a literal and figurative sense, probably put some coals in the fire there. And we'll see. Like, I know Michigan seems like they've been pretty slow out of the gate here, but I mean, once this gets, I think, normalized, and it's everybody's doing it, and like there's going to be some sort of consensus on what is permissible and what isn't. And Michigan has probably been too careful so far because it's not like the NCAA is going to enforce anything on anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But once there's sort of this is how things are these days, the money cannon should get up and running. And I think it's just the train needs a little bit of time to build up momentum.
I mean, isn't there an argument that Michigan's actually done this right in the way that the rules are sort of intended?
No, because if Nick Saban is complaining about Texas A&M, Texas A&M is doing it right.
I mean, that's one view of it, and I hear it. But another view of it is, look, we're not just gonna start writing contracts, professional contracts, essentially as a way of getting players in our program. What we're going to do is say, hey, once you're in our program, we'll create opportunities for you or try and facilitate opportunities for you, but you're going to have to do a lot of that yourself. It is, in fact, your name, image, and likeness that you can market. And we're going to help you market your name, image, and likeness. But we're not all of a sudden becoming the Toledo Mud Hens. And so I kind of like what Michigan has done. Now, is it going to be effective? I know we're sitting at number 20 last time I checked on this year's. Maybe this is something we could talk about in this conjunction, is that I checked the Michigan at the moment, the national recruiting ratings, for whatever that means. I think you guys put more credence in it than I do, but you got Notre Dame 1, Penn State 3, Ohio State 4, Northwestern 8, Cincy 14, Iowa 16, Michigan State 17, and Michigan 20. Now, which of those teams is coming off the best season?
Notre Dame is not going to finish with the number 1 class in the country.
Maybe not.
I mean, you can't look at class rankings right now.
But they're going to be up there. And
yes, but I understand your point. The way that Michigan should be looking at this is the way that Brian's right about Texas A&M, and Brian's right that it's going to normalize. The NCAA is going to find some way, whether they have to make a deal with a players' union or what, they're going to find some way to normalize this because it's just not going to fly the way it's working right now. Until they do, there is a window to throw all the money you can at making your program better. And if you get talented now, that talent is going to be here, or at least most of it, in 3 years. So Michigan should be open up the wallets and saying, this is our one opportunity. It's nuts right now. This is our opportunity to get in there, get nuts, and put together a team that's going to be competitive for the next few years. The worst thing you can do is sit back while everybody is, at the cash bar and just let everyone else do their thing. And then in 3 years, when everyone's got all this talent and you don't, now you want to work in the new system. Like, college football is not nice to teams that don't get ahead.
That's a fair point. What do you think about that, Sam? I mean,
I don't expect that to be.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
I'm not saying that I disagree. I'm not saying that I disagree with that because you are charged with creating the rules. They essentially said there are no rules. Kind of keep this in mind, but really it's whatever you want to do. And so you see some teams that are just being very forward. And you could be more aggressive without, going full Texas A&M, at least allegedly, right? And to be clear, Nick Saban isn't the only coach saying that about A&M. Like, a lot of coaches are saying that about A&M, and it's really sort of part of what's moved the meter for other schools. Like, okay, so you can do that. There's no consequence, no repercussions. You could actually finagle it so it's legal. You have plausible deniability. There are teams that are operating like that, succeeding like that. But I just, the spirit of the rule, what it was intended to be, I think is what has and will continue to guide Michigan. And if that
we are the only school in the country that cares one iota about the intent of the rule.
What was the intent of the rule? The NCAA was like, we can't deal with this.
Yeah,
so whatever.
Their only intent was we don't want to get sued. That was
right.
We don't want to get sued.
Like
there is no intent to that rule other than not getting sued. There's no reason to follow that rule.
Is Michigan like standing out here? It's like, well, we can pay these players, but we can't pay these. We can't like tell them that they're going to get paid X amount before they get here. They just got to guess. Like, what is the principle we're upholding here? Like uncertainty? Are we like the University of Werner Heisenberg?
I guess. And look, I'm offering. What I'm saying is very speculative here. I honestly haven't had a discussion about this is the thought process with from an administrative level. This is a thought process with regard to approach. But what I'm assuming is the case is that they want a very, very clear and bright line between, NIL, name, image, likeness, and pay for play. Pay for play. Hey, you come here because you are getting this deal. And some schools are doing that. Some schools are, I'll say it again, on signing day, I know of a prospect who was committed to a school. We'll just keep it very, broad and vague. Committed to a school. And before he announced that commitment publicly, he got a call from a coach from another school who said, whatever that school that you're committing to today is giving you, we will double it. I was like, wow, they're that forward. Wow, that's amazing. You might be surprised at what school that was. If it was my information to share, if I could corroborate it, I certainly would say the name. But it's like, yeah, man, a line between that, hey, we are paying you essentially to come here versus you come here and these opportunities will be available for you.
Yeah, so I just don't. What's the it's like?
And that guy did not sign with the school who said we will double whatever that other school is giving.
Well, I must have been really disappointed in Northwestern or Yale. That would have been funny. Whatever.
They're coming back for us. But they want to be the winningest team again, man.
That's just like, we're gonna give you money, but we're gonna call it NIL, right? Like, so yeah. Hunter Dickinson's gonna do some ads. He's gonna make some shirts, but like, what is the fair market value of Hunter Dickinson's name, image, and likeness? I don't know. What's my fair market value of name, image, and likeness? I don't know. Nobody knows.
We may find out.
Wait, Brian,
But
I
the-
sell your NIL all the time. I know exactly what you cost. But like, here's the difference. This week we all just saw an ad with, or a lot of people saw the ad with like Andre Anthony, and we were watching Michigan players do an ad for, what was it, the video game that all the kids like? Fortnite. Yeah. And nobody's response to that was, "Ooh, I'm going to go play Fortnite." Everyone's response to that was, "Yes, go get paid, man. All right, I'm glad that we got Fortnite paying our players here." That's what everyone's response was. We already have no difference between pay for play and quote NIL. You're just this is just a fig leaf. And if Michigan is really hung up on a fig leaf and is going to tie their own hands behind their backs over a fig leaf that nobody cares about, this seems psychotic to me.
Yeah.
Well, I disagree. Of
well-
course, old man yells at cloud. I disagree. I mean, it's more than a fig leaf. In one case, what you're saying in the NIL case, what you're saying is that student, that athlete, can do the same thing everybody else in the culture can do. He can come in, he can sell his name, his likeness. He can go out and do a camp. He can go out and do what every other student at the university can do, which is make money based upon his market abilities to make money. That's a big difference from Michigan saying, "Hey, come here, and on the day of your signing, you'll sign $1 million contract." And we're hearing these numbers in that level. We're hearing $3.25 million contracts. That's out there for that wide receiver at Pitt. So
listen, Roman Wilson didn't make that ad because he's a great actor. Okay. There is, if you watch the ad, you're looking at that going, "Oh my God!" Like, it was cringeworthy.
I
How bad
haven't
of an
seen
actor
it.
he
Is he better
No
than
one is
Cade
giving
Cunningham?
him the money because he's an actor. He's a football player. He's been spending his whole life
Right.
becoming a great football player.
That's
he is
right.
one of the fastest people in the country for his age group, and that is why he's a valuable person. That's what they should be making their money on in the first place.
Why he's like,
Okay, well, that's what he is making this money off of. I'm sorry, don't. Yeah. You know what I mean, though. Everyone knows what I mean. That's what he's making his money on. No one's looking at Seth Fisher and going, "That's a good-looking guy. I'm going to pay him some money for that." Right? Like, this football analysis and stuff is what we're doing here. The value that he's getting paid for is his football prowess. And, I mean, we're not even pretending. So why, throw a fig leaf on it? I don't get that.
Yeah.
Well,
hey.
I still disagree. I mean, yes, that's what he's selling is his name, image, likeness. And part of that is his football ability. Part of that may be his connection to the University of Michigan. And that's all fine. But, and it's what the original complaints of students and commentators were. How come a kid who's at the University of Michigan or any other school can't do what every other kid at the school can do?
Well,
and that's the issue. And
that's not the only issue, though.
Well, to me,
I
it
mean,
seems
Lane
like the
Kiffin
issue.
just told
Mhm.
Sports Illustrated that these are professional players and we're a professional sport. And NIL has legalized all the stuff that was cheating before.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
that's the practice, that's the functional matter, and not the abstraction of it.
Yeah, so
get
and it's literally impossible to parse out what is name, image, and likeness and what is pay for play,
it.
because
That's-
these
agreed.
amounts that people are getting paid, nobody has any idea
Mhm.
whether they're legitimate business deals or not. Now,
Well, let's go with not.
well, but even like, how are you supposed to say, like, if Alro Steele wants to hire a Michigan player, like, what is the fair market value? You don't know. So it's practically unenforceable. So why try to enforce it? I mean, and then if you do actually professionalize the sport, you get to sign people to contracts and you get to like tamp down on the portal stuff, right? And that's the problem, not the fact that people are getting money. The fact that every year in basketball you're replacing half your roster and you're getting much many fewer Xavier Simpsons and more guys who are just hitting the door as soon as anything happens, because there's no reason to stay if you get a little bit of adversity. Now, if you actually professionalize the sport and you're like, okay, this is a 3-year contract, you have an NBA out, you don't have a Bobby Hurley out, then I think the arguments that the NCAA was making about paying players, reducing interest in the sport, are invalid. But I think they actually do have a case that the transfer portal stuff is out of hand and could be a negative impact on their business model.
Yeah, understand that when I say this is not me making the case, not sort of espousing my position. But I wonder if there's a concern. Yeah, I wonder if there's a concern. I wonder if there's a concern about setting a precedent. I hear what Craig is talking about. There's a certain way, a certain standard that they want to adhere to. It may be a personal standard. They may be the only ones adhering to that standard, but they feel like this is what it's going to be eventually, that there is going to be some law and order that governs the NIL and transfer portal process. So we're going to operate according to that, because if we violate that now and try to put the horses back in the barn, then we have changed our culture in a way that will allow for people to question, well, wait a minute, weren't you guys just willing to get deals for XYZ to come to this school? Weren't you just willing to get a deal for Hunter Dickinson? For everyone that comes after, why wouldn't you do within the rules? Why wouldn't you do more of those things that you were doing back in the day and you aren't doing now? I wonder if they're concerned about setting a precedent that they don't want to have to adhere to down the line, or have to adhere to for any length of time, however long it takes to get some rules around to govern this thing.
Yeah. But Brian's argument, I'm sorry, Brian's argument is, yeah, that's all fine, but in 3 or 4 years, once it straightens out, or maybe it was Seth's argument or both, is that in 3 or 4 years, once the sort of water reaches the quote definitive or defined level, Michigan will be Northwestern or maybe University of Chicago, even worse. I mean, and I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah, I hear that. And that may be the consequence of, because understand, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying this is what I would do. We're speculating, right, about why they're doing what they're doing.
How dumb do they think the players are? Because the players are going to be in this process too. They are now they're the people you're going to have to deal with. They're the people that when they have these contracts, you're going to have to work with.
Here's what I know exactly what's going on. Here's what I do know: they do not want to be in the business of getting deals for players. They don't want to do that, because if you get in the business of getting a deal for Hunter Dickinson, then when Terrence Reed comes in, go get me a deal. You just got a deal for Hunter. And then the same thing when you look at other sports. You just got a deal for Hunter over in basketball. JJ's like, go get me a deal. And if you get JJ a deal, then you have Case. So wait a minute, you just got JJ a deal. Go get me a deal. I think that's the practical. That's not a rule thing as much as it is a practical concern.
Do you think Alabama's had any trouble with that over the? I mean, you think Texas A&M is like sitting here going, "Man, I don't know if we should give Walter Nolan all this money because then next defensive tackle is going to want money." Like,
I think they probably did have that issue. I don't think it deterred them clearly, right?
I mean, let's be a little bit honest here. Michigan has, even if the coaches haven't been involved in it, Michigan's found ways to get players money. They were doing it when I was in college. They were doing it, they've been doing it forever. Michigan back in the day was built on this. Yost was the biggest cheater of everybody. And that's why his teams were really good, because he and Chicago were paying players. This is not a new thing. Everyone's worked out this system already. Every single company in the world has people making more money and less money. And you know what? You take a deal. You take a contract, and then it doesn't matter. Look, here's what your value was when you signed this contract. You agreed to work for this pay. You agreed to be here, and that's what it was. If somebody else is making more, it costs more to get them here. People have been dealing with this in our society for hundreds of years. We figured this out already.
All right, we need to get to a break. We'll pick this discussion up on the other side. I know Craig has some hockey points he wants to get to. We got a lot still to come here on the MGoBlog Roundtable and a Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, The Ticket.
Yeah, sorry about the kid. She
No, that was good.
If anyone thinks Shaq, he hawks everything, man. Printer, ink, the general. The one that makes sense is the Icy Hot commercial that he does. Like, okay, that makes sense for Shaq, for the big fella.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no.
I mean, Seth, I would say that Stagg was a bigger snake than Yost by a long shot.
Stagg was a bigger snake, but Yost was not.
Yeah.
Yost
Yeah,
did
no,
not.
I'm not.
Like,
I'm not. Yeah,
you're the one who wrote in 1893. You're the one who dug this up.
Yeah.
That like a former Michigan player in 1893 said, "Yeah, we were paying players back then. I'm a lawyer. I can't lie. I'm going to lose. I'll get disbarred. Everyone can prove it. Yeah, I paid players. We used to get them on the train on the way to their visit to Michigan and be like, okay, here's a couple $100. Enjoy yourself this weekend."
Yeah,
but and of course Notre Dame was running players out there who weren't even in school. They were pure tramp athletes and professionals.
They were still
arguing.
It
is my opinion, by the way, that opinion. This is not. I'm not reporting this as fact. It is my opinion that Notre Dame is working NIL angles really, really well, hard and well.
Okay,
my opinion.
Okay,
and so I think that's a factor in. At least it's somewhat of a factor in their success. It's not just the improved recruiting prowess.
It's not just the guys involved.
Right.
My question, I guess, for all you guys on this is: look, is Michigan and more maybe for Sam, what is that?
It's Uptime. I got Sheldon. He said you got me drinking Uptime. Yeah. Hey, man.
What is?
Are you getting NIL too, Sam?
I'm not. I should be. Hey, man.
Kickbacks from Uptime. Hey,
what
I'm not getting kickbacks from Uptime. I'm on this show
energy drink, so it gives me
Uptime.
It gives me about 4. Unlike other energy drinks that you spike and like you're there and then you crash.
Yeah.
This gives you that even energy over about 4 or 5 hours.
So what's in it? I mean, I would.
No,
great.
No. We're not going any further until I get some NIL.
The answer is time release energy.
There you go. There you go.
Time release energy.
There
yeah, great.
Go.
I mean, so anyway, but here's for Sam, if Michigan ends up the year sitting at around number 20 and Michigan State, Iowa, Cincinnati, Northwestern, are all at quote beat Michigan in the recruiting year. I mean, why is that? Is that going to be because of NIL? I don't think so.
So I think that Michigan, I think it's a combination. I don't think it's just NIL that has them behind all those teams in recruiting. I think that's a part of it for sure. Absolutely. But I think there is some, with staff turnover, with Jim having looked at the NFL, you lost both of your coordinators, your recruiting staff. I think in addition to NIL, have put them in catch-up mode with basically everyone they compete with on a consistent basis. So Michigan State, Ohio State, and Notre Dame, man. Notre Dame especially. Notre Dame is a problem. They're a problem with their increased recruiting prowess. They're a problem with what I believe is their NIL approach. The hope is if you drag out enough of these recruitments, that when they have to actually coach and coach some games, and maybe they'll suffer some L's that kind of bring them back down to earth a bit.
Marcus Freeman might know how to coach too. I went
to
all my eggs in that basket. Losing Brian Kelly made that place a lot more attractive, I think.
Yeah, I think that's all true. From a Michigan point of view, Michigan's sort of systemically looks, or at least structurally looks.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side. Listen, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, get on board with Brighton Ford. All you have to do is call 1-800-NEW-FORD to get the great deals, the information on the great deals for well-qualified lessees going on at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. You can also go to their website at brightonford.com and Check them out. Great lease deals like the one on the Ford Edge, which you can get into right now for as low as $287 a month, or a 2022 Bronco Sport Big Bend for as low as $324 a month, or a 2022 F-150 for as low as $250 a month, all with only $2,000 down. For more details, call 1-800-NEW-FORD or make it out to the lot at 8240 West Grand River Avenue in Brighton, Michigan. Then you can get on board with Brighton Ford. And so, fellas, wanted to also take a minute to get into some of the things that you guys wanted to talk about. And one of those things, Craig, for you was Michigan hockey. Now, to Ira's point in one of the breaks, he said, hey, well, we still don't have contract information on Mel. That notwithstanding, you think next year could be an even better year for Michigan hockey?
Well, I don't know what happens if Mel isn't back. I mean, for the moment, let me assume that Mel is back, because that's sort of my guess. And when I looked over it, I thought, okay, Michigan, I saw all the games this year, and I felt that Michigan was hockey has more randomness than probably any other sport out there. Maybe baseball or softball, but I think hockey even more. And so it just felt like a lot of the randomness sort of flipped against us more than would be usual in a year. And when you look at what comes back, I think Eric Portillo is just an A-plus quality goalie who will be as good as anybody in the country. I think they're going to have a defensive pairing that's that will be as good as anyone in the country, with Truscott and Luke Hughes, who I felt by the end of the year was the best player I saw in college hockey last year. And that's just going to be a dynamite pairing, and they're going to be pretty strong on defense. There, we saw the national developmental team. There was a kid there, Seamus Casey, who was just phenomenal, I felt, in when I saw him this year, and he's going to come in. You've got a more experienced Ethan Edwards, who I thought improved as the year went along. So you look at Michigan's goaltending and defense, plus there's another kid, Hunter Bruskowitz, who I think is going to be a nice player at Michigan. And so I felt like, this is going to have a core of a really strong defensive team. And it's a defensive team with offensive, because of Hughes, just massive offensive upside too. And then you look at the kids they're bringing in. This could be the fastest group ever. I mean, they're just going to be fast.
So how many first-round draft picks were there again?
In the incoming class?
No, in this last year's team.
They had 7.
7. So you're saying, and I'm curious if you agree, Brian and Seth, because I don't follow it like you guys did or do, but you agree that next year's team could be better than that crew that we just saw?
Well, this feels like these are 2-year cycles. So like Michigan they made the tournament, but they weren't super great in the freshman year of Power and Beniers and Bordelot and all those guys.
Yeah.
And then they were the number 1 overall seed in year 2 of those guys. So I think it's going to be maybe a season where you have some bumps along the way, because they're going to be super young. Because Bruskowitz, as mentioned, is a 2023 draft eligible, and so are Gavin Brindley and Adam Fantilli, who are probably Fantilli is going to be probably the number 3 pick in the 2023 draft. Brindley is probably a top 10 pick. So they've got they'll have their draft years in college, and those guys often maybe have some struggles at the beginning of their freshman year, and then they adapt and get better as things go along. In terms of so they had 7 first-round picks last year. They're probably going to have 7 first-round picks this year. The difference is that they won't be first-round picks yet, because Brindley, Fantilli, and Bruskowitz are all candidates. Frank Nazar will go in the first round this year. I think Recker McGroarty will also go in the first round this year. And Casey is being projected as like a second rounder. So they will have that talent, but it's going to be young. And one of the interesting.
Disagree.
Well, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I think it's going to be like adapting and trying to fit in a ton of new pieces. And one of the interesting things to me is they added a kid named TJ Hughes, who's out of Alberta, and he's older. He's 20 already. And so you look at his numbers in a junior league that does produce talent every year, but is generally not very deep in terms of NCAA prospects. But just the sheer number of points he is scoring. My dude has 80 goals and 76 assists in 75 games this season.
1980 scoring.
And we've seen guys come in and it's like, okay, they had a point per game in the USHL, but they were 20. They're Emil Orval. They don't work out. I gotta hope that like 2.11 points per game is going to translate. And that's a guy who's not drafted. That's a guy who you kind of find at these places like Mankato or UMD, who they find the guys who are going to be long-term college players who are older and really are able to dominate the sport. And that's how you get those UDFA guys. So he's another guy who I think could be immediately productive because he's older, but they're going to have like 3 17-year-olds they're really relying on. And it's just going to be probably a defensive mess from the forward positions for about half a season. And that's just going to be something they have to live with.
I mean, that's a smart take and probably right. But all my instincts is when I look at this team, I said, this team is going to be so damn fast. And,
yeah.
I mean, it's going to be maybe as fast a team as Michigan's ever had. And Michigan is always a fast team. I mean, and it's going to be fun to watch. You know, I see them having, remember, they have Mackie Samoskevich back.
Yeah, they have Samoskevich back.
I mean, he's a real deal. I mean,
and we haven't even mentioned Jackson Hallam,
right,
who was a 3rd-round pick last year. I know a guy who works in the USHL and said he was the best forward in the league. I think he's a little biased. And Adam Fantilli was also in the league, but he's a guy who really broke out this year and is elite, like Carl Hagelin, Andrew Cogliano level skater. So they are going to be super fast, and it's just going to be fitting everybody in. Tyler Haskins is another guy who's draftable. Yeah. So they really crushed this recruiting class, just like they crushed the recruiting class with Beniers and Power in it. So yeah, they're going to have a lot of talent. But so you mentioned Mackie Samoskevich is back. What other forward with experience are they going to put on a scoring line?
Well, they have Ciccolini, who is a pretty good player, who was out all year with an injury.
Yeah,
you know, that's true. I mean, I think Dylan Duke is
Duke is number 2.
Yeah, who's a guy who is, you know, a scorer around the net. I mean, he's not a superstar because he's a little undersized in terms of the NHL, but you know, at the college level. I mean, I think Estapa has a year under his belt and has a chance to be okay. I mean, I see them having like a line that would be something like Samoskevich, McGorty, and Nazer, which might be about the fastest line in the history of college hockey. I mean, I think that's a possibility. And I like a line with, say, Duke, Fantilli, and Estapa.
Estapa.
Yeah,
I mean,
Estapa didn't look good at the end of the year last year.
I mean, he's fun on the boards and he takes a lot of penalties, but he's not going to be a scoring line option next year.
I think that could be a good scoring line, or if Hughes is the deal, you put Hughes up in that with Fantilli and Duke, and then you still got like Ciccolini, Brindley, Hallam on a line, which is another fast as hell line, and so you know, to me, this. I agree. You don't know how long it'll take for a team like this to evolve, but it seems like there's a lot there, and they can't be as unlucky as they were last year. Plus, I mean, is there a GLI this year, or are they dumping that monstrosity? I think they may
doubt it. I mean, after what happened last year, I mean, Michigan is going to lose those guys going forward in perpetuity. So I feel like.
I think it's time to dump the GLI, at least in terms of the timing of it.
So how about this question on the way out? Maybe you guys can come to some consensus on this one. How much better will Luke Hughes be? How good will Luke Hughes be this year. Is he the Hobie Baker favorite heading into the season?
Well, no, because Kyle Connor didn't win it. So the people voting on it,
that's an abomination.
Are complete goons. But if notwithstanding that, I think you'd have to say so. I mean, he was just ludicrous as a freshman, and should be improving rapidly. And the only question is like, well, his shooting percentage is pretty high last year, so if he regresses there a little bit, comes back to earth. But yeah, he'll definitely be a finalist. I can't imagine a scenario where he's not.
Yeah, me neither. He was, by the end of last year, I thought he was the best player in college hockey last year. And I mean, the stuff he can do on the ice is remarkable. It's like, I don't want to compare him to this person, but at the level, he looks like Connor McDavid, and who I think is the best player in the game. And I can't say enough at how much he improved last year and where I think he's going. So, yeah, this is going to be a fun team. At the very least, it should be an incredibly fun team to follow this coming year.
Yeah, they'll score goals, but they're also going to give up a ton of odd man rushes.
Yeah, that could be true.
That's the thing about hockey. Right? When you're young, you make mistakes, and mistakes in hockey are worse than 3 really good plays. And these guys can create good plays, but hockey, you have to be buttoned down. That's why these teams do so well with 22-year-olds.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right,
but I'm excited about this team, and I think it's going to be a fascinating year coming up in Michigan hockey. You know, we don't know what happens to Mel, but I think Mel will be back. I don't. That's
I wonder how much longer that's going to take. You guys here now? I guess we got to close on that. You hearing anything else on that? And I know you had a softball take you wanted to get in before you got out of here, Craig. We can try to touch on that real quick. But any inkling from you guys' sources on how much longer it's going to be before we hear on Mel officially?
Not until the law firm makes its. I mean, I don't think Michigan can do anything until this law firm issues a report. Even if the administration knows what's in the report and it's being written, which is possible. I don't think they can do anything until there's a formal reporting.
Yeah. Softball season came to an end last week, Craig.
Read Alex Strain's article at MGoBlog. It's hard, but very fair, in my opinion. I curious and about Storako in particular leaving. I'll say Hutch has recruited a really good class. I think maybe one of their best classes ever since Romero.
Real quick, I guess I didn't realize this, and this is a mistake on my part. I didn't realize that the COVID extension, the COVID roster extension was only 1 year. I thought that it would be for a span of time that you would be able to extend your roster.
Well, they talked about it, but they decided not to do it because some of the schools complained that Michigan was going to hold on to Storakos and whatnot.
Well, Michigan could have. I mean, the problem is there's only 12 scholarships, which is too few, and Storako is apparently in the transfer portal. In fact, it's more than apparently, I think, as is Hannah Carson, who was their cleanup hitter. And those are 2 players that had eligibility because of the COVID year, and so it changes Michigan's floor quite a bit next year without Storako.
Carson, I think, is more of a kind of a man Portillo situation where you've got one of the best. I think you got the best catcher in the country coming in the next class.
Yeah, Lily Valancourt.
So and they promised her, but I agree with you, and this is what Alex Drain was saying. Softball's changed in the last few years. It used to be more of a slap hitting game. Now it's all about power. Right now, everyone's hitting home runs, and Michigan does not play the way that you have to play if you want to win as a slap hitting team. You have to be aggressive on the base paths if you're not going to be hitting home runs. So their strategy on the base paths is very conservative, like a home run hitting team, but they don't have those power hitters. So you got to be one or the other, and the game has changed. I don't think that this is a a problem with Hutch. I think that she's adapted to the game changing many times already, and one of the most capable people at changing her approach of anybody. But I just haven't seen it yet, and this class is not really a bunch of power hitters either. So
yeah, we can pick up this discussion.
Yeah.
We
I have a lot to say on this.
For sure. We got more time to go. We always find things to talk about with the Roundtable crew. That's why I love you guys. Appreciate you guys coming on every single week. We need to get out of here. We'll see the rest of you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTK, The Ticket, the official voice of University of Michigan sports.